for us to learn about this. So to start us off, we discuss the metaphor. And the metaphor speech that directs one thing to another. But these two things seems unrelated. An example of metaphor is our boyfriend is a rat. I did explain who a rat is and say that a rat could probably be somebody who thieves here and there. So that is the boyfriend is not really a rat, but behaves like what? One. I also give an issue of Najma is a lion, which means physically Najma is not a lion, but in terms of character and behavior, she is very close to a lion. Probably she's very brave. A simile is a metaphor, both two unrelated things. A simile uses the word like or as to connect them. So the difference is a simile uses like or as to compare the animal and the human being in question. So that is the difference between a simile and a metaphor. I hope it is clear. I hope it is easy to understand that way. And these two things just compare you to the animal in relation to character, or performance, or the way you do things. Like Ahmed is an antelope. Ahmed is an antelope. We mean here could be Ahmed runs fast, could be Ahmed is swift. So we compare him to an antelope. That's a metaphor. I could have it in simile as Ahmed is as swift as an antelope. So the difference here is similes give more clear meaning. So if your essay topic is on business, most of us have business mindset or probably would want to do business later in life. So if your essay is on business blogging, you could write the metaphor hook. Business blog is a magnet pulling clients to the company. So there must be the leader of that business organization. So we say Yusra is a magnet. Yusra is a magnet, which means Yusra attracts people to a shop. That was that in our last lesson. So we said that a story needs a hook. There is something which needs to hook up your essay, which will attract or the attention of the reader or the marker. Begin your essay with a short story or episode that connects your essay topic. Make sure you can use this type of hook in your essay. Some essays will not allow you to use this type of hook. Okay? Readers love stories, especially a well-written story that is memorable. Those or whoever is going to read your composition would want to read a good story. His interests, or in order for him or her to award you marks, your story must be appealing. Here is an example of a story hook from an essay about difference between British and American English. Now, it is more of maybe Somali language spoken in Ethiopia and the one spoken in Kenya and the one spoken in Somalia itself. There could be some changes here and there, and even misplacement and placement of words differently. So this hook is very easy and clear. Let us read it together. I got off the train and put my luggage behind me. A car pulled up to the cab and drove. The driver got out. He lifted my luggage and said, "Miss, I am just going to put your stuff in the boot." I didn't know what he meant until I saw him open the car's trunk. Then I realized that boot means car trunk. I realized that the boot means car trunk. I got into the car wondering how many other words would be different in England. Now the hook is, this person is trying to draw your attention into the story he or she is going to write about a visit to England. So you feel there is some taste coming into you, which is actually luring you to try and read more. So then we could also have, that is a story hook. Number 6, we could also have a description hook. Write a vivid. A vivid means interesting, nice. Description of a scene or setting that will draw your readers into your writing. Make sure that your description hook ties with the rest of the history. I think this one, number 6, is very, very important for us, especially when we shall be writing. This lesson is on YouTube. You can keep it and probably use it next week when I will give you a composition or an essay to write. Here is an example of a description hook for a personal narrative, that is essay about saving a dog. The dog hauled in pain and limped along the side of the road. His leg was cut and blood streamed down his leg. I was giving an example of an accident, and here is a hit and run situation. So you say the victim cried in pain and limped along the side of the road. His leg was hurt and blood was streaming down his leg. So immediately after the loud screech, you could pick up that, because this was a hit and run situation whereby the person injured was hit by the vehicle and the driver of the vehicle sped off. Then number 7, we have quotation hook. Begin your essay with a powerful, striking quotation. For example, you begin by using a proverb or some quotes by a prominent, well-known person. Quote the person's word directly. It can be quotation from a famous person, but it doesn't have to be. Make sure that quotation is relevant to your story. Like we said, we were talking about a road accident and you had just left home and you are going to join up with your team or your group or your friends to go for a picnic. So you could say, you could have a quotation about on a proverb, which probably like this one: for a good day is seen in the morning. I got ready and left the house, something like that. So if you write an essay on a topic of education, you could begin with some scholars' quotations or quotations from scholars. Like here, we have a quotation from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon one can use to change the world. I began my speech, something like that, right? If you write an essay on topic of education, you could begin with Nelson Mandela said, or we could also say, Yusra said, education is power. That is a quotation hook. Then how does the transition work? Now that you have a hook for your introduction, it is time for the second part of an introduction or transition. The transition is a sentence or sentences that connect the hook with the thesis. I already said earlier, thesis is the main body of the composition or the article or the narrative you're writing. As you may have noticed, the hook is always related to the topic of your essay, but the hook statements is or are quite generic, which means they are created by you. You have not yet told your reader what your essay will be precisely. Precisely, which here means after you've done the hooking of your composition in the introductory part or introduction part, then you need to go for transition. In most cases, we are given storylines. And now, this transition is when you switch from the paragraph given in the storyline to what is going to be part and parcel of your composition or the main body of your composition, where the content and the theme on which or in the theme you are writing on or about will be clear. And this is what we now call the thesis. So we are moving to thesis. This is sentences. A thesis, the body of the composition cannot be a sentence. It has to be several. You are going to ask me several, how many? Depending on the number of paragraphs. They could be 100, they could be 80, they could be 200, depending on the length of the composition. Remember, for purposes of KCPE and the time allocated, which is 40 minutes, the requirement is try to make sure that your composition probably has 400 words, slightly less, slightly more. There is no official rule on that. It is not cast in stone. It is just a suggestion which works very well. Because if you overwrite, you will be time bad. If you underwrite, you will leave out important information which would have graded your composition better. So thesis, this is the sentence where you tell your reader exactly what you will be writing about. The hook is a generic, even it must be related to your topic. The thesis is very precise, which means now the content of the accident I was talking about, how it unfolded, what help I provided, what happened to the victims, how many died, that is now the body of the composition. It is the most important part. So here is an example. I will use the hook. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. The thesis, since more Kenyans than ever now have access to higher learning in universities, the country is seeing less poverty and more people into middle class. That is very true. When I was younger, in my village, you could only count the number of vehicles driving into the village. But now, almost every home has a vehicle. Almost every home has a vehicle. Almost every home has a nice building, even here in Isili. Almost everyone has something to be proud of. So having hooked the story, this is more of a speech now. It's an example rather. This is, since more Kenyans than ever now have access to higher learning in universities, the country is seeing less poverty and more people in middle class. Remember, the hook was, education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change this world. So in this case, the storyline or the thesis is now leading us to that hook. Why did Nelson Mandela say education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world? And why does the writer, the writer, also think that it is also true? So in your subsequent explanations, that is in the thesis now, or the body of the composition, you are going to attack your composition to that hook. So if you read those two sentences, or one after the other, you will realize that it does not make sense. Something is missing to bring the hook and the thesis together. If we add this transition sentence, it becomes legible. Okay? And here is the transition sentence. Many Kenyans agreed with the words of Nelson Mandela and fought to have better access to education. Let us read the hook, the transition sentence, and the thesis in order. This is an acceptable what? Introduction. Look at it now. Here is another example. Gallaudet University, the only liberal art college for deaf students in the world, is world renowned in the field of deafness and education of the deaf. This is the hook. Gallaudet is also proud of its charter, which was signed by President Abraham Lincoln in the year 1864. This is more of an old story. All of this happened in Gallaudet history. This is the transition. And enormous part of Gallaudet legacy comes from its rich history and the fame of two men, Amos Kendall and Edward Milner. Gallaudet. This is the thesis and what you will be discussing in your essay, These Two Men. I want to break it down without going deep into that story. Your hook could be talking about probably our school, Mansour, its establishment, its existence, and there must be somebody behind its existence. So you hook it in that way, and then we are going to talk more about the founder or even the manager, and even the further, the importance, like that university mentioned in that particular what? Example. So now, after the transition, the hook, and the introduction, you go straight away to the body of the essay. Now that your introduction is written, you will write paragraphs that support your thesis. Thesis here, what you are writing about or trying to prove. A thesis, in short, is what you're writing about or what you try to prove. At our level, most of our compositions are not about proof. They are about narration or a narrative. They are about narration. So it is much easier compared to trying to write to prove something. So remember that each idea has its own what? Paragraph. You already said that each step on the way, each plot must be manufactured or made into a paragraph which interconnects with the next and the one before, right? In order to write a good conclusion, so the body of the paragraph entirely depends with the writer. It entirely depends with the writer, who is the student. It entirely depends with the writer, who is the student. So in order to write a good conclusion, you must know that in order to write a good conclusion, you must know what not to do in a conclusion. Now, in your conclusion, also ensure that you don't write words like, my story ends there. This was a good story, enjoy it. No, let the reader make his own observation about the story, whether it was good or bad. Don't add or don't force the marker or the reader's hand into accepting your composition as a good one. Let him or her be the beholder, be the one to decide how good or how bad your composition is. So, in order to write a good conclusion, you must know that you must know what to do, what not to do in a conclusion. So these are the things you're not supposed to do. One, it is not a repeat of your introduction. Okay? It is not a summary of your body paragraphs. Don't use the conclusion of a composition as a summary. You are supposed to explain and narrate and state everything in the body of the composition. And this will be with the points you had put up earlier to guide you. 3, it is not a place to add new content or make new argument. Yes, you don't say then if I see another accident, if I witness another accident again, this time around I'll be better. That is the end of my story. Please don't do that kind of writing. It's not a place to add new content or make new arguments. I think I've explained that in the little part I've said. These may work in speeches, but they come across as wooden and tied in writing. In conclusion, don't use these words. In conclusions, in summary, in closing, as shown in the essay, please avoid those terms. A strong essay conclusion restates, not rewrites your thesis from the introduction. It just restates, it confirms the story from the onset to the end. Ours was more of an accident. Don't end the story by saying now how you are doing your cooking at home after witnessing the accident. Let it end with the accident story. Don't bring in story B, don't bring in story C, don't bring in story D. Just let it end with the accident and anything related to the accident. So, we continue. A strong essay conclusion consists of 3 sentences. A strong essay conclusion consists of 3 sentences. Minimum. That is minimum. 3 sentences probably are enough for a paragraph. It concludes thoughts, not presents new views. It concludes your thought or what you have been writing about. It does not bring in new suggestion or new views. Boys and girls, I hope this is clear. Your conclusion should not present new ideas, but conclude, end your story. Try to connect your story with the beginning and the end. Remember how the introduction starts more generic with a hook and becomes precise with the thesis. The conclusion is the opposite. It starts with the precise and ends by being more generic. Okay? 1. Conclusion starter. It is the sentence restraining a thesis of your essay. So, if you wonder how to start a conclusion, rephrase your thesis statement and write it fast. A summary of a main part of an essay. Here, you'll have 2 to 3 sentences wrapping up an argument of your essay. Explain how they fit together. A summary of the main part of the essay. Now, we were writing about an accident and how you have taken part in the issues to do with the accident, and you are at the scene, you are at the forefront, you have spoken to the police because you are the eyewitness who was able to see this firsthand, and then now you get home. Just conclude by talking about how you felt terrible, probably how you felt terrible for those who are involved in the accident. Now, or then you feel tired and you have to retire to bed or do other things. Just let it end there. Don't proceed and say, after thinking about the accident, how it had happened, how it could affect me in future, I went to help my mother in the kitchen. After that, I bathed, I wrote my homework, sat back, watched a movie, then slept. Please, you are beginning a new story. The thesis, the theme, the body of our composition was about an accident. Let it try to favorably end. I think that is what is meant by a summary of the main part of an essay. Essay, don't add any additional information or outsource information. 2, 3, a concluding sentence. A concluding sentence. Okay? A concluding sentence. A concluding sentence. Okay? It is a final sentence of your essay, providing a sense of closure and connecting reader back to the introduction. You realize the conclusion I gave you? I got home, felt very tired. When I got home, I was very tired. The scenes of the accident was still fresh in my mind, but I had to move on with the rest of the evening activities. You see? You see? The final sentence of your essay, providing a sense of closure and connecting to the beginning where the content or the theme was an accident. The so what or who cares game can help you write your conclusion. Let me explain this further. Wherever you are making a statement from your conclusion, ask the friend to say, so what? Or why should anybody care? Then ponder that question and answer it here. How it might go. Yeah, the issue of the accident, the spot where the accident happened. Should anybody care and probably erect bumps there? That should provide very good conclusion. Okay? I'm just saying that education was important to Douglas, friend. So what? Yes, it was important because it was a key to his feeding or feeling like a free and equal citizen. Friend, why would anybody care? Yes, if you're writing, for example, about education, you need to tell or explain why it is important for everyone else, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every high and the mighty to attend to school or to go to school. It is important because life cannot remain the same, and an educated person is very, very important. That's important because plantation owners try to keep slaves from their educated, from being educated, so that they could maintain control. When Douglas obtained an education, he undermined the control personality. You can also use this strategy on your own, asking yourself, so what, as you develop your idea or your draft. In that particular paragraph, there is somebody called Douglas, and this Douglas was a slave. Some of us are conversant with the slavery story, and being a slave, they were not supposed to be educated, or their masters ensured that they did not attend school. Reason being, if they got educated, they could become powerful and they could rebel and they could stop being enslaved. So in the process, this guy Douglas got education, and then he was able to do what? Now that statement is being used to try to help us find a solution to a problem, especially when we are writing a composition on issues like an accident. When you ask, what next? Such a question is being formed in your mind. It informs you on how to write a proper, better conclusion. Right? Right? So I think it is done. So I will go back from the beginning. From the beginning. The first slide ever was this. It has been a long. What is an essay? An essay is a written piece of work that is short and addresses just one subject. Remember, do not have two stories in your composition. Just make it one. If it is a speech on public health crisis in Israel, stick to that. If it is an essay on insecurity, stick to that. Don't talk about parties. Don't go talk about football matches. What is the first step in writing an essay? It is working out a plan. Working out a plan. You should have a plan, or in our English, we also call it a plot. So how do I make a plan on my essay? Your plan should note that there will be three parts in an essay. The first part is introduction. The second part is the body of the essay. And the third part is the conclusion, which you have just talked about. And then how to write an introduction. Introduction is very important. It is very important. You need to hook the story from there. Hooking means you need to draw the attention of the reader from that point. You need to draw the attention of the reader from that point, right? And then what is an introduction and how to write one? An introduction is always be in your first and probably second paragraph. And then what I've said, the most important thing is hooking. So the hook is a specific example or story that interests the reader and introduces the topic or the theme. So there is interesting question hook. That is one. There is strong statement or a declaration hook. And then there is fact, statistics hook. And then number 4 are metaphor or smile hook. Number 5 is story hook. And then number 6 is description hook. And then number 7 is quotation hook, which I think among the 7 hooks, the quotation hook is the one, to me, in my view, it is the hardest one to work with. So I think that is it. In our next lesson, if there is a way you can save this information, it's also going to be on YouTube. So you can also find it there. In our next lesson, we are going to write a composition. And when we write the composition, please make sure it reaches me. It is worth it. We mark it, we enjoy it, and have everything fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely day. Take care. Thank you so much.